I haven't opened
Oh, yes.
Zoom yet.
Zoom. Gotta do the Zoom.
No, I just opened Outlook, and Microsoft wants me to use the new Outlook.
Oh, yes.
I don't want to change to the new one. The old one is working better. But okay, I guess I have no choice.
Yeah.
One day, but not today. Okay, launching Zoom. Yeah.
There we are. Okay, all set.
Yeah. And great, I have Zoom as well.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Okay, how are you doing?
Very good. Very good. We're celebrating spring at the Improving Office, so got my nice bright pink shirt.
Okay. Well, here the sun is shining finally.
Yeah.
Because the last couple of weeks it was terrible weather. It was not like spring.
No, no, but yeah, it seems to kind of rock back and forth on the edge. Here in Texas, we get about a week of really nice spring weather, and then it either gets cold again or gets hot.
And concrete, how does that work? Having spring at improving.
Yeah,
Does it mean switch off the heater?
yeah, yeah. So we have every month we have a town hall meeting for the Dallas office. Every office does their town halls, and so we've got a theme each month. And so yeah, this month the theme is spring. So yeah, just people dress up to match the theme. The slide presentation is all themed. Sometimes we'll even have lunch or dessert that matches the theme. But yeah, it's always catered for the town halls. I like town hall
Okay.
days. More people in the
And so
office.
then,
Yeah.
and from then onwards, they start with new energy, full of
Yes.
energy for a new season.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yes. Yeah, and there's a lot to be excited about around improving. We have opened our acquired our new India office. So now we
In
are
the
on
office.
3 continents.
Okay.
So
Because
that's pretty
you
awesome.
were already in the States.
Yes, the states, U.S., yeah, Mexico, and Canada, and then
Hmm?
uh, we just a couple of months ago now acquired a company that has offices in Chile and Argentina. So yeah, that gets us into South America, and then yeah, now we're in Asia.
Okay. And that will, so now you are in different time zones.
Yes, yeah. A lot of our
Will-
larger clients have been asking for that. That's why they go with some of these really big consulting companies because
mm,
they can do around the globe service.
mm,
So yeah, this gets us that new capability. Plus, the engineers in India are some of the best people that I've ever worked with.
mm.
There's something about the culture and the education. Um, yeah, they have some really good people. So I'm happy to be able
Mm.
to work more closely with them.
Okay. But so you will have early and late hours from now on. Very early and very late.
Yeah.
All right. Michael, remember that last time we talked about this namespacing? The namespace changing if you move files between different folders.
Yes. Yes. Did you figure something out on that?
Oh, that should work, but it doesn't.
Oh,
Wait, let me
yeah.
show you. Share my Visual Studio here. Okay, you see Visual Studio here.
Yes, I do.
So first of all, we have, but I think we knew that last time already. So in Tools, Options, then in Projects and
Mm-hmm.
Solutions, you have this one, Enable Namespace Update when moving files.
Yes.
Now, this was enabled in my by default, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't seem to do anything.
Hmm.
Then there is, for example, here, if you go to the code, if I just control dot, normally the only thing it proposes is to convert to file scope namespaces.
Yeah.
But it should propose also,
Mm-hmm.
where was that? Change namespace to folder name, because
Right. Yes.
that's something I found on the internet on a Microsoft site.
Mm-hmm.
That option should be there, so manually you can just change them.
Yes.
And I thought perhaps it is because we are using file scoped namespaces here. With most of the cases we don't use the brackets. Here we do use them.
Yeah.
I said perhaps it's related to that because that's a new feature. So I switched back to this one. It doesn't change anything.
Mm-hmm.
But then there is another magic thing. For example, you go on a project or on a console, you click right, and then you have here sync namespaces.
Sync
You see
namespaces.
that one?
Okay. Yeah. I don't
And if
believe I
you click
used that
that
one.
one, if you click that one
Oh.
here, it gives me value cannot be null,
Oh my.
so an error. Sometimes it does work. Let's try here. No namespaces needed updating.
Mm.
But that could be correct because in meanwhile I updated them all manually. But even before I updated, so I found somewhere on a Microsoft site that it was not working, and that was a bug which
Mm.
was logged in 2021 or 2022.
Oh.
So
That does not sound good. It doesn't
no,
seem like it would be a difficult one to find, but yeah, if it hasn't
mm.
been fixed in that amount of time, it's probably not even been looked at.
But it's amazing how many people are struggling with this.
Hmm.
And also the policy of, do you want to have this structure namespace, folder structure namespace, you want them to be equal or you want them to be separate, independent? People do not agree about that.
Hmm.
But okay.
Yeah.
So for the moment, we will have to do it manually. There seems to be some extensions, but I just adapted it manually.
Hmm.
Then I
Yeah.
made a little bit progress
Okay.
with the emphasis on a little bit. So if we go to the new task dialog, no, not the new task, the overview dialog. So here, before we had client name, we had yard name.
Mm-hmm.
So now we added the delete column here, the first column.
Oh. Okay.
And wait, I shifted here. Do you see the program running now or not?
No, I don't. I see Visual Studio.
Yeah. Let's switch again here to the main window. Okay, now you should see it.
Yes.
So yeah, I shifted on it. So here you see the
Yes, I do.
tasks, task overview. I add a first task.
And
Yeah.
shift the modal.
So let's take the first one here. Yeah, description test one. Anyway, that column is not yet shown.
Mhm.
I add a second one. I'm not going to shift it, which I make B,
Mm-hmm.
and then I add a third one, which is the B with another yard with yard B2.
Okay.
So we have 3 different clients now.
Mm-hmm.
Let's delete the one with the yard B1. I delete and it's gone.
Yep. Nice.
I can even add it again, but that's a different record then.
Mm-hmm.
So how did we do that? Which was finally very easy. Something that could be done in less than five minutes, but it took me much longer than that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot of little nuances to
Actually,
think about.
let's make a little bit more space here. So in the data grid, in these rows, I added the binding to selected task. Yeah, which
Okay.
is
There we go.
just
Yes.
okay. So in this task overview window, the data grid, I added the binding to selected task. So that's the selected row.
Mm-hmm.
I added another column here, which contains the delete button. If I click on it, it just goes to a delete task. My delete
Mm-hmm.
task is here, so which will go to the task overview model. And if we go
I see.
there, I just take that task and I add a task delete
Yeah.
effect. Now, what is still missing there, and we spoke about that last time as well, on the console, I should only be able to delete tasks that don't have work on it yet.
Hmm. Makes
So
sense.
we create a task. The task is synchronized to the telephone of a worker.
Mm-hmm.
The worker starts working on it, so hours are booked on that task. And from that moment onwards, the dispatcher should not be able to delete the task anymore.
Right.
Now, in the current production version, it's a whole thing where we go.
Mm-hmm.
So when you push on delete tasks, it sends a kind of message to the phone. The phone, a question, is there anything booked? And then the phone replies, there is nothing booked or something is booked.
Mm-hmm.
And the deletion will only continue the moment that the reply is nothing has been booked. So then on the phone it will be deleted first, and after that it comes back to the dispatching where the delete button will delete the task. But so here we
Yeah.
don't need to do that because there is no real deletion. It's just the task delete fact that we add.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So are
thing that
you
I
thinking that there's going to be a a recycle bin where you can see all the deleted tasks and bring them back?
um, I think we will do an undelete automatically.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, we talked about that. Yes,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So the dispatcher will delete, and if later on a task will come in or work hours will come in, there will be a conflict, and we could resolve that automatically by undeleting
Mm-hmm.
or just by masking. Be careful, you deleted something that I still have to think about.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is for the moment. So I should have a query here, but in the model we didn't yet link. What was it? The tasks on the work hours.
Oh,
So I will have to extend the model first.
okay. Hmm.
That was something which we did in the very first model.
Oh, okay. But we're incrementally building this model, so we don't have
Yeah,
that yet.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah. But so that one I will have to extend first, and then we can do this.
Nice. Okay.
But so actually the with this binding of the selected task in this view model, and then Jinaga, who automatically binds the results,
Mm-hmm.
it was very easy. Yeah? And even the selected task cannot be 0 because you click on the delete which is in that row. So it cannot be 0, but
Mm-hmm.
if you don't put it, it will give a warning.
Yeah.
So just put it to be sure.
Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking about how that works with WPF, and I think um, you're relying upon a feature of the grid in order to make that work. Um, but the grid could have been built in a different way, where you can interact with the components, like the buttons, without actually selecting the row. Um, so if you were to just render a list and there was no idea of selection, um,
Mm.
then you wouldn't be able to see using this method which of the buttons you hit. Um, so I'm wondering if it's safer in the in the event that calls this to use the sender. So I'm kind of
Okay.
curious what the sender is in this case. Maybe we can debug that and see what comes
Wait.
in as the sender.
I was where I was here. Um, hmm,
Yeah. So we can probably just put a breakpoint on line 58 and then see what sender is when we click the button.
here on this one.
Yeah, that works too. Yeah. So so yeah, you can see that sender
Yeah,
is just
yeah.
an object.
I just need him here, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. I can stop him here. We'll see
Yeah.
what that does. Oh, yeah, yeah. Now you don't see the.
Yeah. But
I
that's
leave
a
it on Visual Studio. I leave it on Visual Studio.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I create a first one, and I'm gonna delete it. I create a second one, so we are sure that it doesn't work by accident.
Mm-hmm.
Save, and I delete that second one. Delete. And so if we go to sender here,
Okay, it is the delete button itself. Yeah. Okay, so
so
yeah.
we don't get the information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if we wanted to do it that way, then we would have to bind um, the task as a property to the button, and then we could get it from the sender. Um, and I believe, if I remember correctly, buttons have uh,
I,
a context property or something like that we can use to do that. But
wait, but bind
yeah,
the property to the button. Or what
yeah,
did you say just now?
yeah, yeah. So let's take a look at the XAML and see what properties we have available. So we've got the
Where were we? I was just
yeah.
here.
So there's the button.
Delete. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think okay. So that's content. But I believe that there's another property called context.
No.
No. Yeah.
A
No.
context menu, but
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. The idea that's running around in my head is that there's something we could bind here, um, where we could tell it which um, which task we're looking at. Yeah, I'm trying to think through all the steps to get that information in here. It does seem kind of circuitous.
what you want to avoid is that in this case, by clicking on the button, automatically the line is selected.
Yeah.
But so if that would not be the case,
Right.
because that's a little bit by accident that it works.
Right. Exactly.
But what you could do is from the button, go up in the tree and find the row. And from there, because that was something I was researching first, and I thought we had to work that way. Um,
Mm.
the bottom is part of the row. And
Yeah.
so in that row, we can get the information of the task and work that way. But then I should store the ID of the GUID of the task in a hidden column.
Mm. Okay. Well, that's something to think through. It looks like uh, this is going to work even if it is by accident
Mm.
for this process or for this use case. So I don't think it's a big thing, but yeah, I would be kind of curious um, to research that. These are things that I used to know about WPF.
Mm.
Yeah, the fact that it's inside of a template causes some problems because then you have the visual tree and there's another tree. Um, uh, but yeah, the if you follow the path in one direction, you basically just get back up to the template. You don't get to the row. Um,
Yeah.
but then in the other direction, you actually do get to the row. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, so there's following the graph from code upward, but then there's also in XAML being able to inject things and have them propagate down and do that declaratively, so that the information is right there and you can just bind it. Actually, I think it's binding context is the name of the property, but yeah, that only gets us halfway there.
Mm.
We have to know from within this data template uh, what to bind to. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, something to noodle over and try to remember how to do that.
Mm.
But but yeah,
I
excellent.
will have
Got
I
that
will
working.
I will have a look at it. I will have a look at it. Because all this WPF is still things which I have to deep in
Yeah.
dive in deeper. Um,
Yeah.
it's
Um, it's
it's an,
old technology, but it's also new because it's something that that
it's all
yeah that's
technology, but
yeah
for me, WinForms
that's true.
was the good technology. But
Uh huh.
this is not bad. This is not bad. Once you get a little bit used to it, and especially with this MVVM thing,
Mm-hmm.
uh, it gets nicer. Um, you have to find your way a little bit, but it's not so messy as WinForms, where you
Yeah.
have to bind everything in all directions to make something work or run away.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm finding in React, I'm using hooks in a very similar way. Uh, I'm using hooks the way that I use view models in in other systems. Um, so yeah, I find it a lot easier to think through the custom hooks and how they yeah, the view models and how they all interact, and then it's like okay, now I gotta I gotta pause. I have to switch you know, switch my my style of thinking, and now I'm talking about the view. Um, and for other people, they just think naturally in the view. Uh, so yeah, pairing with somebody that is really a UI specialist, and then I can create some view models for them. I think that's uh, that's a good way forward.
good, but so there it ended for the moment. Um, but I will extend the model, and then make sure that the delete button is only available if there is no work done yet,
Yes.
and see how we handle that if we have a conflict.
Yes. Okay. That in order to do that, so you will need to solve the problem of not relying upon the selected task, because otherwise, as you're selecting, all the delete buttons will appear once you've selected a new task, and then you select another one. They all disappear.
Yeah, because I will have to know which button
Mm-hmm.
it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think ultimately what we're going to end up with is a small view model for the button. So now you can just that's going to be um, the binding context for that button, and then it's just going to bind to the um, you know one property to say if it should be visible, and then
Mhm.
another property would be the command to click that specific
Yeah.
button, rather than
Mhm.
that being a command on the outer view model.
Okay. So the can execute goes to that view model then.
Yes.
Mhm. Let's try it.
Yeah.
Let's try it.
Yep. That'll be fun. Yeah, and
Mhm.
I'll try to do a little bit of research and see if I can find that pattern. It's up there somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah. Once you switch to another technology,
Mm-hmm.
um, it goes away very fast.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. In React, it's just a prop. You have a loop, and then you take
Mhm.
the element of the item in the loop is a child view model. You just that's a prop. Boom. But yeah, yeah. WPF XAML just approaches that differently. Yeah. In fact, it's really going to be useful for me to remember that because yeah, I'll be doing some Maui work once I get finished with the CodeLaunch thing, and so getting back on a Maui project, and then uh, yeah, I'll need to remember how to do that.
Mhm. Oh, in that way, it's good for me to start with WPF because for the portable application on the phones, it will be Maui anyway. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true. All right. Well, yeah, let's
mm,
let's
my
talk a
next.
bit about CodeLaunch. Uh, so I will do a share, and then we can bring up. Yeah. Oh, gotta push the button. Push the button. There it is. Now get rid of this thing. Boom. Okay. So, yeah, the last time we looked at CodeLaunch, we got through. I'll just bring up the README here. Let's view it formatted. So we got through setting up Fusion Auth, and um, I think we set up the env local, although I did just pull new code, so I'm wondering if I clobbered it, but let's see. So here is, yeah, here's env local. So yeah, I've got a public key for the user that created the tenant. I've got the client ID for FusionAuth. So those things are good. And then we created a provider file. So here in the mesh front end authentication, we've got a FusionAuth provider. And so this is telling us that we are going to expect the issuer at 9011. That's FusionAuth. The audience is that client ID. The key ID, FusionAuth has the private key, so there's the ID that it uses to talk about that private key, and here's the public key. Um, so um, that is how we have configured the authenticate or the replicator to authenticate. It's going to accept FusionAuth tokens. because they will be signed using that public key. So we've got that, the key ID. We have created the tenant. That's how we got our tenant public key. And then we were going to start here, the service principal. I believe that is where we are. So let me go to Docker, and we have some, we have a stack under LaunchKings that is not started. So let me go to a, go here, and we just did a Docker compose build. So this is the latest stuff. So I'll do a Docker compose up -d -- build. Even though it's built, I like to include build so that I can just rerun that command. And it restarts all of the containers. Recreating them if necessary. Okay, we are waiting for Fusion Auth to start. There it is. Okay. So now everything is started up. Yep, and we see that attendee IP is still struggling. It's saying, hey, table auth codes has no column named scope. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is something that I want to go ahead and fix right now before we go any further. I had changed the schema for its local database. So since I did the the up without deleting any volumes, that means that it still has the old database. And since I'm in development mode, I said, let's not do migrations.
Let's delete the database.
Yeah, just delete the database. So what I will do, it's stopped, so I'll go into files. Oh, the container's not running, so I can't see files. On my other machine, I see a debug. I think that's maybe an extension that I added. Yeah, I don't think this is going to... okay, so it's stopped. What I will do is I will just look at the bind mounts. So we've mounted this folder as a folder within the container. That folder, if I take a look at secrets attendee IP service IP client, then in here Fusion, not Fusion Auth, but secrets attendee IP, service IP clients. Then I've got this attendee IP file. So this is just how we can mount secrets into the container. It's not safe to set secrets in environment variables because they can be seen by any process that's on that container. But if you mount them as files, then you can control the security groups that can access that particular file folder. So you get better control this way. And in fact, if you use Docker secrets, it's basically an abstraction over files. So it does this kind of thing. At any rate, that's the secret key that we will use in order to sign tokens that the identity provider will use to send to set up services. And so here attendee IP has the same secret key so that it can validate that token. So these two have to be the same, and of course in production they would be some random value, but for development we've got those. All that to say, this is not the volume that's giving me trouble. If I look at volumes, no. There's there's another volume that was mounted. Let's see if I can just look at volumes here. Now these all have numbers as values, but here we've got Launch King's attendee IP data. So that's empty. That doesn't have any data in it. So that's not the right one. Yeah.
And the launching DB data. 2 lines below, yeah.
Oh, okay. What is that one? Oh, that's clone. Can I look at the contents?
Next to it, huh?
Ah, okay. This is Postgres data. We're using SQLite. Yeah. So I don't think this is the right one.
No.
Yeah, I think Longstream's DB data is FusionAuth's database. So yeah, but attendee IP data. Oh, it said 0 bytes, but yeah, this is the SQLite database. Perfect. Okay. So can I just delete that? Yes. All right. So now I don't need to delete the volume or anything like that. It's just when it starts up, it's got an empty volume, so it'll say, oh, I need to create a database. So we will, in fact, it should be trying to start up. Oh, no, I told it to stop. So we'll just use Docker Compose up in order to tell it to start again. And then that should create a new file here. I don't know if it's going to automatically refresh. That would be kind of cool if it did. But Launch Kings, yeah, now it should be green because we should be bound to it. Well, it's still not green. Attendee IP data. Okay, well we do have the file. All right, so we go back to here. Here's attendee IP. And now it's failing to start, but for a different reason. Okay, this is the reason that I was looking for. Okay. So the reason this is failing to start is because of this forbidden. It is not able to run the query that it needs to run. It's also logging out this public key, which is going to come in handy. So let's hold on that and go back to the instructions. Okay, so we need to authorize the service principal. So attendee IP runs a service that fetches attendee access paths. Just to remind you what this whole attendee access path thing is, if I go to the Launch King's admin, right here, then, yeah, we're good there. Then I log in using FusionAuth. Okay, and now I'm in admin. If I go to, yeah, so we set up the tenant, we had that key, then we set up this event, so plugged in Jinaga there, and we had this attendee access code. So this attendee access code, just a QR code that they can scan, is basically identifies an attendee access path. So the path is the rules by which it's going to grant access. And right now there's only one idea for rules, and that is basically everybody who tries to follow this attendee access path will eventually become an attendee. So this one is wide open. I'm planning other attendee access paths that mean that when you scan it, this also has a specific user code that means that anyone who scans it is logged in as that specific user. So these are passed out and customized for each individual user. But this one is wide open. But that is what the attendee access path ID is this this GUID right here. So we go to localhost 3001 and then pass in that attendee access ID. And so the attendee IP is that's the identity provider that the application will call and pass in that attendee access ID, and then it will set up your access to the event. So what it needs to do is be authenticated with the replicator so that it can fetch all of the events and see what attendee access paths have been set up. So to do that, we can grab that public key, which we could do through Docker, Docker desktop, like we were just looking at, or we can do through the command line, either one. So, whoops, -1. There we go. So now we've got the public key. Whoop. So this is the public key of the attendee service itself. How did it obtain this public key? Let's follow some of the steps. So the attendee IP is logging in with Jinaga. Let's actually walk through some code to see how that works. Attendee IP, the identity provider. Here's our server TS. So it is trying to, just to make things nice and easy to look at, let's go to app, attendee IP, and npm CI. Load all those in there, and then npm run build, and we should see our squiggles go away. Oh, interesting. I'm not sure why I didn't pull in Jinaga. There we go. I just didn't I instead of CI. Yeah. Yeah, the CI should have worked. It didn't change the lock file. Anyway, so we are going to somewhere in here we are setting up Jinaga. So let's go to start subscription. That's where we'll see it. So we need access to our Jinaga instance. So here's our Jinaga client. That is set up right here. Okay. So there's the replicator URL and now the authentication provider. So how do we get our access token for this Jinaga client? That's going to be a service authentication provider, and that is going to give you a bearer token that it gets from here, service client. Okay, lots of steps. But yeah, so what this is going to do, it's going to load in a client secret, and then it's going to fetch from the service IP. That's another identity provider in here. So we're looking at the code for attendee IP, and service IP is an identity provider that is authenticating services. So that's the handshake that uses the shared key that we saw in those two files. So we load that shared C, that client secret. We send that over to the service identity provider to fetch a token, and this is using the client credentials OAuth grant. And then we get back our token, and that is what we use for the authorization header every time we talk to the replicator. So now the replicator knows that that this client that's talking to it is the identity provider for attendees. It's attendee IP. Now what it does with that is it subscribes to this attendee access paths to configure specification. So we are looking at access paths in a given tenant. So we've got our tenant public key that we set in an environment variable. That's not a secret, so we can use an environment variable for it. And then it's looking for attendee access paths for which there is not an attendee access path configured. So basically here we're seeing attendee access paths, but then there's a successor to this fact, which is that it's been configured. And so finding those that have not been configured, it then goes through the process of creating an open access path. That's the one that allows anybody to register for the event. And then it creates that fact. So essentially popping it off the queue, saying, I'm done. I don't need to hear about it anymore. So we've got a nice little queue pattern happening in the background here. Now the purpose of this is to set up our SQL database, our SQLite database. Yeah, just insert our AAP record. So these are the AAPs, ID, type, policy, event ID. And then on a different path, when somebody tries to gain a token using the attendee IP, this is the table that that it will use in order to look up the policy and the event ID for that particular AAP. So lots of craziness happening, but the upshot is that what I need to do is I need to tell the this tenant that this service principal is allowed to access the replicator. So we've copied the principal public key, and then we go into the service principals. We add a service principal, and we paste that in. So there's our public key for the service principal. And now by doing that, we've authorized it. And so we should see that attendee IP is now able to start up because it's able to fetch those AAPs that need to be configured in its own little SQLite database. So we've configured that attendee access path, D604. That should be exactly the same one as we see here, D604. And so now we've got that information inside of the attendee identity provider. Now I do want to show real quick the reason that worked, because this is really important for setting up a Jinaga distributed application, is that you'll need to set up authorization and distribution rules. So in the model, so let me go to LaunchKing's model. I've got authorization rules. So here is a whole bunch of authorization rules. Let's look at, first of all, tenant. Yeah, so that's saying that who can create the tenant fact? Well, just the user that is the creator. So that's that single use principle that sets up the tenant. Who can create administrators? Well, a tenant creator, so that single use principle can, and then other administrators can. Other administrators of that tenant. Then when we get to bookkeeping, that's the one. So this bookkeeping authorization, this is all of the things that are kind of attached to the model that are not core domain. So attendee access path configured is a bookkeeping fact. It's attached to the attendee access path, but it's really just for this service to keep track of when it's finished. So you've got the service principal fact itself, and then attendee access path configured. So who can create these? Well, only the service principal user of this tenant. So service principal users of. This is a nice little helper static function. So I say, okay, this is going to be service principals of the tenant, and then from there I'm going to select many predecessor users. So go from the tenant down to all the service principals, and then go back up to the user for each of those service principals. This one's another little helper method right here that saying starting at the tenant, let's find successors that are service principals that are attached like so. So by encapsulating these little parts of specifications into these helper methods, we can really simplify the syntax, make it nice and succinct. I like that. I'm going to have to provide a whole bunch of documentation and training on how to do that, because that's really helpful. So that's who can create these attendee access paths configured. There's also the distribution. Who can run that query? So bookkeeping distributions says that service principals can see the access paths for their tenant that need to be configured. So here's the specification that it wants to run. Given a tenant, I want to find all the access paths in that tenant. Where there does not exist an attendee access path configured. Compare that to the subscription here that it's running, which is access path to configure, and that's the same query, the same specification. So you can basically copy that, paste that here, and say who's allowed to run that specification. Well, I'm going to share that specification with the starting from the same tenant that you're using to run the specification, all the service principal users of that tenant. So service principals can run that specification. So it was that distribution rule that caused it to fail until I went into the user interface and set that user up as a service principal by pasting in their public key. So that's how these things all hook together. So go to one application and create facts under one user, so an administrator can do that. Then go to another application and run a specification, but you have to have a distribution rule for that to be allowed to do so. And you're running that as a different user. And then you just share public keys to say which user are you talking about. Okay, that user. I'm gonna set him up.
Yeah, it's a complex web of processes.
It is. It is. Yeah. So I definitely need to document how to set up that web. Create some training around how to think about that web. The first part of that is in the book. So we've got patterns around security. Yeah, it starts with like the application patterns. So chapter 9 is security, and we've got at the end of chapter 9. Actually, wait a minute. Authorization. Yeah, grant of authority. Yeah, the grant of authority section on 310 in chapter 9 is really where it talks about how you can as one user, create facts that authorize other users to do things. But yeah, that's high level. To really get low level and say, well, this is how it shows up in Jinaga. This is what the distribution rule looks like. This is what the authorization rule looks like. Then for that, I want to have some content on Jinaga.com, Jinaga.net, as well as, I think this goes beyond documentation. Still need the documentation, but also this is really changing your thinking. So it's really more of a course that I'll need to construct around it.
Perhaps the documentation, and afterwards, once the code launch is passed, I don't know whether you want to make this application on GitHub available.
Yeah, this this specific one, no, but I do want to change, or basically take these patterns and show them in a different application on GitHub. But yeah, something that does have the the admin application, services, identity provider, a different application that's intended for, like in this case, attendees, but maybe it'll be continuing the university thing. So maybe it'll be a student application, that kind of thing. So yeah. The fun thing is that an LLM is really good at just changing the names of things in order to, to make it seem like it's something different, but still just follow exactly the same patterns. So yeah, I can say this isn't a startup accelerator event. This is a university, and you're signing up for classes, and then in here you're setting up those classes and the instructors, and say, okay, follow the same patterns, just boom. Change the names. All right. Okay, so that brings us to, now that we've got this up and running and it's set up its attendee access path, let's get an attendee registered. So let's make sure that we have completed the steps here. Yep, now it goes on to how to do local development. Basically, to do local development, stop the thing that you want to develop. So if you're working on the admin interface, stop that. Or if you're working on attendee, stop that. And then just npm run dev. And it's all configured to attach to the replicator and the identity providers and everything that's running back here. So local development is really nice on this. Okay, but now we've got this URL, and we've got an identity provider that will respect this URL, and we've got an application running at the localhost 3000 and 1. So let's copy that URL, go into another tab. I'm going to open up the network so that we can kind of trace this through. But then, I also want to preserve logs. Okay, and go. Whoop, 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 whoop. Hey, lots of things flashed. I do want to change the flashiness, but then, hey, here's your mobile experience. Launch Kings. Welcome to Launch Kings. Tell us who you are. A lot of stuff happened in order to make that work. So, let's look. Okay, so it landed on the application, and then it tried to call authenticate. We have a couple of cancels. I think there's multiple paths that it gets to the identity provider, or the not the identity provider, but the inside of Jinaga, the thing that that gives us Jinaga config, the authentication provider, this thing. There seem to be several paths that get here, because it says, oh, we're going to call get service token lots of times. So I do want to fix that, but it's not a blocker. The third one is a charm that actually gets through and it cancels the other two. And so this hits 8082, which is our attendee IP, and it passes in all of the OAuth stuff, the code challenge in order to do the Pixie thing, and it also passes in the AAP ID. So there's our D604 going on in, and so that then redirects us back to authenticate retry. What's the idea there? So it looks inside of its cookies. So inside of the request header, we see, hey, here are all the cookies I've got on this domain. And it says, nope, didn't find the one that I want. So I'm going to redirect. So here's a response that redirects to authenticate retry, and it sets the identity cookie. So the identity provider makes up a random GUID for you, sets that as a cookie, says, okay, retry using this. And now we retry, and we actually pass in that cookie this time. So here's our identity cookie. And so that cookie is stored in the attendee's browser, and it is on the domain, in this case, localhost 8082. It's the domain of the attendee identity provider. So not the domain of the application itself. So so basically, the identity provider is going to use that that cookie in order to figure out what user it should log you in as. So since here it generated the cookie for the first time, it's stored in its own little database. For this identity token, I want this user ID, and it's not just using the identity as the user ID. That way, you can't just go in there and change the identity in order to create a new user. You have to actually, clear your cookie, hit the QR code again, and go through the whole process. Whole idea: make it somewhat difficult for people to switch from one user account to another on their device, so that people don't cheat and vote for their finalists multiple times. So, given the fact that everybody's scanning a QR code, that's the most secure that I can make it. There's still holes, but it's pretty good. So, do all that, and then you've got your callback for the whole Pixie round trip with the code, which then now on the client side, it turns that code using the secret that is generated back into, it validates, yep, that's there has not been a man-in-the-middle attack, and then it uses that to then request a token. So here's our token request, and here's our response. We've got our access token for this attendee that also carries with it a refresh token. The access token lasts for an hour. The refresh token lasts for 30 days. I think that's 30 days. And so yeah, that way you can be using the application. Oh, your access token has expired. I'm just going to, secretly behind the scenes, just whoop, whoop, grab you a new access token. Okay, keep on going. And we can take a look at the access token and see what's inside of it. So jwt.io. Oh, they finally switched to the new interface. Nice. Okay, so here's the access token. I haven't told it what the secret key is, so it's not validating the signature. But we can still see that inside it is an attendee. The attendee IP key is the key ID, so it looks up that secret file that we just looked at. And yeah, here's the subject. So that is the actual user ID, DFC1. Let's make sure that I'm not lying about that not being the identity right here. Oops, there. This is what set the ID in the first place. Here's the response set cookie. Yeah, AFED. So a completely different GUID from the subject. So it's like make up these two GUIDs, and one to the browser, put the other one in the database. Then here's the event ID. So 8004, we can see that identifies, here's 8004, that identifies this particular CodeLaunch event. So the token is just good for that event. So this user, that event, those two things together is an attendee. There we go. Issued at 8:56, expires at 9:56. And that gives the user access to the event. So all of that, there's a lot of steps to make that all work, but the steps to set it up at the very least are not as complicated as everything that it takes to make it work, but still some complicated steps. Some of this I can automate, so I probably will, with the help of a nice little LLM, automate this, especially this part here, using the Fusion Auth API. So just write me a script that does this, and then I can put in here, call this script. And that way I can get other developers working on this, and they won't complain too much about all of the setup steps.
Yeah.
But that is how that works.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing that it works. No, not if you it's you who wrote the code, then it's but
yeah. The parts that I really like about it is that the rules for authorization and distribution are declarative, that you write those as specifications. So you reason through what the rules should be as you build your model, and then you code up those specifications, use them in the application, and then also use them for the rules. Yeah, I didn't show there's one npm command that you can use to update a set of files. In fact, let me go ahead and show that real quick, because I think this is also a really important part of it. So if we go back to here,
that you can use to update authorization and distribution rules.
Yes. So in here, I'm going to go to app, then LaunchKing's model. And then inside of the LaunchKing's model, npm run, we can see there are several different npm scripts. This one here, generate policies. Npm, well, first of all, I will install all the dependencies on this machine. Come on. Yeah, I'm not sure why npm CI is not working on these projects, but okay, this time it did update the package lock, so the package lock must have been out of date. But maybe I don't have the minimum or the same node version. I don't know. But now we can npm run generate policies, and that is going to okay. Yeah, this, okay, that shouldn't be, Yeah, that should have already been part of the package file. Okay, so I might need to check in my new package file here. But this is just called the model with the generate policies flag, and then sent all the output to front end policies launch kings policy. So here, when I call the model, so we're in source. Okay, this is a TDIP. We want to be in launch king's model. So here is our index TS. And when I use the generate policies flag, then it's going to describe the authorization rules and the distribution rules and just log them out. Nice and simple. And that is going to produce mesh front end policies launchkings.policy. So we go to mesh front end policies, launch king policy. That produces this. So here are all the authorization rules written in the factual specification language, and then all the distribution rules. So that's all the security stuff. And so now the replicator knows how to behave. It knows what to accept and what to reject. And I didn't have to write that in factual. I got to write that using these nice little helper methods. So every once in a while, I'm working along, and it's like, okay, I need to move on to the next part of the model. Okay, so let's first of all, make sure that I've set up the facts correctly. So create the fact types, and then we add all the fact types to the model. Here we go. So here's the model that brings in all those types. And then make sure that we have the right authorization and distribution rules. So we set these things up. Then run that little command, and then that updates that policy file. So I see the change here. In this case, it didn't update it because that was already checked in. So I check in that policy file as well. So I can see here are the changes to the authorization and distribution rules. I can actually review those diffs and say, yep, that was what I intended to do. And then just restart the replicator so it reloads the policy file. And now it starts to apply those rules. And I keep going. So that's a nice little process. It means I get to stick with code inside of the model project and code inside of the front end. Well, this one isn't front end, but the front end code looks very much like that. And then everything works, and no custom code on the server side, or no custom database. Just configure it, and it's still secure. All right.
Yeah, that first time to set it up is going to be a little bit searching, I think.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and so a course is going to help out there. Documentation is going to help out there, and some examples, and then maybe even some LLM context, so that the machine knows how to do it, and then you just describe it and you watch it go and you say, no, that was wrong, and you keep it on the rails, and then you get to something that works.
Yeah, but some documentation will be needed, because
Yes.
just with the artificial intelligence alone, it's not going to work, I think.
Yeah, and in fact, AIs require just as good documentation as people do. If it's good for people, it's good for LLMs.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah. So
you made a
next
lot,
week.
yeah, a lot of progress.
Yes.
I think it was the beginning of June that you had this.
Yeah, it is. Let me see if I can pull that up again. Uh, Code launch. That is, yeah, coming up on June 25th. So the later part of June.
Mm, yeah,
But
still have a little bit time.
yeah, yeah, not
Mm,
not infinite time. And in fact, before we get there, um, I'm currently working on uploading it to our host so that we can try it out. And I want to run a load test so we can configure a cluster of replicators that talk to each other, so that it can handle 1,000 people all voting at the same time. Um, and So it's not going to be a huge load, but it is going to be bursty.
mm.
So
The biggest so far, I guess.
yeah, yeah, we have had. I think Houston had 1,200 people once. Um, so it's the show has been pretty sizable. I'm not sure how much we're expecting in Canada, but yeah, I think we're targeting around the 1,000 mark. Yeah, we want it to be a nice big show. Um, yeah, the ones that I've been to, probably around 600 folks. So still a good number of attendees. Um, you know, Plus you've got the backend application that the people behind the attendee app, or the admin app that the people behind stage are using in order to to see the votes coming in and uh, advance the brackets. Start round two, announce
Mm,
the winner, all that stuff. Um, and so yeah, I want to do a load test, and then we want to do a user acceptance test, which we're calling faux launch. So get a whole bunch
mm.
of improving execs together, and then it's, okay, everybody, here's the QR code. Let's just go. All right, let's. For that, I'm sure
Yeah,
Jason will even take the faux stage and do his Jason thing.
yeah. Then you can ask the help of India
Hmm.
to vote.
That's true. That's true.
Uh, mm,
That'll also test out our geofencing. We want to make sure that just people within the code launch event itself can vote. So we'll want to say, oh, okay, yeah, uh,
mm,
yeah. We have had in the past one group uh, have sent the QR code out uh, to their friends outside of the event, say, hey, just go ahead and start up a whole bunch of machines and vote for us. It was all based on text at that time. So yeah, we're replacing the experience here with something much better. But yeah, they saw a bunch of text messages coming in, and they had the geo information tagged with that. With each one of those, and they can kind of see a stream of, oh, these aren't the right locations. So, yeah, they just simply said, all right, uh, yeah, this finalist is disqualified, so the winner is the next one. So
yeah,
all those
there
features
is
have to be enabled. Yeah.
always creative solutions.
Yes, indeed.
Mm. Okay, next week you will
Next
be
week.
there.
Yes, indeed.
I will be there as well. So, okay, Michael, thank you very much,
Thank you, Jan.
and see you next week.
Yep. I'll see you then.
Okay, bye bye.
And bye.